Hey guys, welcome back to Breaking the Barrier. I'm Rebel Saklocha, and today we get to learn from someone who is on the front lines preserving our Western heritage and providing opportunities to rodeo and the Western industry. Joining us today is Kaitlynn Hayes of Rocky Mountain Mini Broncs and Mini Bulls and KH Bucking Horses. Kaitlynn, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to dive into what you do and the opportunities that you're providing for young rodeo athletes. But to kick things off, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
So I'm from Hayden, Colorado, up in the middle of nowhere by steamboat. We've been doing the mini Bronx since 2009. Me and my brother Keenan and my parents, and then about 6, 7 years ago, I took it over, and it's grown from there.
Very cool. Well, this really is a family affair, as you mentioned. Tell us about the early days, when you got started, and kind of how that came to be.
So Keenan obviously rode sheep before he got into bucking horses. And my cousin rode saddle broncs, and so did my dad and my grandpa. And me and my cousin had a bet over who could be a stock contractor first. So my dad took it and ran with it and bought me a pony that bucked. And Keenan was our crash dummy, and it only grew from there.
Very cool. Well, in case no one has made the connection, the Keenan in question is world champion bareback rider Keenan Hayes. So if you can imagine him getting his start riding a sheep or a pony, I think that's a pretty comical mental image to
Oh,
think
yeah.
about.
We
And
got some good pictures of it.
you
He got
experience it
one
all
over good.
firsthand. Yeah. Uh,
It good thing he got good at it because his first one was not.
Very good. Well, we'll look forward to seeing the photo and video proof later on
Oh
for
yeah,
sure.
we'll get it out there.
Very cool. Well, mini broncs and mini bulls have been kind of a fun thing that have been gaining more popularity and whatnot. But talk about that in particular and kind of what you're hoping to do in terms of developing young rodeo athletes and that sort of thing.
So our main goal is to help grow the sport. Obviously, there's not a whole lot of bareback riders anymore. Saddle bronc riding is growing, and then there's a ton of ranch bronc riders. But if we can grow it in any shape or form and plant a seed anywhere, that's all that matters. We have ponies of all sizes up to big horses of literally all levels, from walk trots for 3 year olds up to horses that we've sold that have gone on pro trucks. And we did help with the start of the junior NFR way back when. My dad and his partner Casey Riggs, they helped found that, and then we kind of stepped back for a year when I went to college and Keenan wanted to go pro rodeo and stuff, and then I got in a position where I could take it over, and I've doubled the size. We went from 15, and we doubled our rodeos and stuff. So
Well, as you mentioned, there across the board, there has been sort of a shortage of rough stock contestants, but a lot of that
mhm,
just comes down to having an opportunity to learn and a
mhm.
safe opportunity at that. What kind of fundamentals are these kids learning when they're getting on mini bronc and bulls?
So our deal is we match the kids to the horses. So when they enter, the parents tell me their age, their weight, if they've ever been on, how many they've been on, if so. And I kind of just match the horses from there. We teach them the basics of laying back. We don't let them double grab. And then once they get into the older age groups, kind of just your basic rules that you have to have when able to compete. Mark out 8 seconds. Try to spur the best you can. We try to hold them to the highest standards possible so they can be successful later down the road instead of just get on and hang on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you mentioned, your business has grown quite a bit here recently, but it's been around for a while and helped quite a
Mhm.
few athletes make the jump from lower ranks of rodeo to college, pro, and beyond. Who are some of those athletes, and what are some of those success stories that you've gotten a front row seat to?
So obviously Keenan number one,
No
which
bias
that's
here.
I'm not biased at all. And then Cooper Cook, actually, him and Keenan were best friends. He rode for us for a lot of years. Tucker Caricado, he won the high school finals a couple years ago, and then he won the permit finals this year. Um, Bradley Miller rode Pony Broncs, but he was down in Texas, and then I believe Dean Thompson kind of did too here a little bit, but if my numbers were correct, I think 6 of the 15 bareback riders that went to finals uh, started out or rode ponies at some point.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I would love to learn more about just the logistics that go into this. And I forget, I think you cut out when you mentioned how many rodeos you started with and you have grown to. Um, but what has that growth process looked like from your end in terms of, soliciting new rodeos or fairs to go to and expanding, what you're doing?
A lot of it has just been by word of mouth, talking, just explaining the process and what it's about. Having the backup has been the main thing. And then the proof, obviously, because if there was no proof, they'd be like, okay, we don't want it. But like just the proof mainly, and then obviously having good stock and being safe for the kids.
Yeah, for sure. Well, there's a lot that goes into being a stock contractor at any level, but I think this is really unique because I feel like there has to be I would love to know what goes into like a mini bronc breeding program. That sounds like so much fun. Maybe I'll do that in retirement someday. But what does that look like and how do you make sure that you have high quality animals for these kids to get on?
So I got lucky enough that my dad and Casey kind of started the whole thing. So then when I just took it over, I just had to figure out exactly what I wanted. But they had a lot of good mares and a lot of good studs and stuff. Nothing we have comes out of the sale barns. We breed or buy from to know they're a actual bucking horse. If we buy out of sale barns, it's in my opinion, a train wreck waiting to happen. Um, but and even from like reject ponies and stuff. But just mainly their disposition, how they buck, if they can handle being on the road and stuff or not. We haul them. I had one this year that we started hauling at 2 weeks old. I probably shouldn't have done that, but she likes to go now. Um, yeah, no, mainly disposition, and then, like I said, I had we have literally ponies of every size, from like 36 inches and smaller to big horses. So if I need more quarter ponies, I'll kind of cross there and back riding or the saddle bronc riding.
Very cool. Well, I want to learn more too about the mini bowl side of things. What does that look like? And obviously, I for any, mom that's sitting at home listening to this, they're like, I'm not going to let my kid get on a bull. But really, letting them get on at a young age in a safe
Hmm.
environment is probably going to set them up for success long
Hmm.
term.
So, with mini bulls, I actually swore I would never own mini bulls. My grandparents raised cattle. I hated bucking bulls with a passion. And then I had a rodeo approach me, actually Steamboat, Bert Romick over there, the president of it. He's like, Kaitlynn, we need mini bulls. And I was like, I don't really want them, but actually, one of our really good family friends from over on the eastern slope was selling out his herd, and I knew the disposition of them. I'd worked with him, and I had the opportunity to buy half of them. So I went ahead and bought, I think, six, and then just from other people that we knew that were getting rid of them, I went ahead and bought, I think I had 15, 16. Um, and they're all pets. They're all dog gentle. I have to put a weight limit on them. It's 12 and under for the mini bulls, and then I think 110 pounds is what I have. So we're not putting guys that are too or kids that are too big on them. And then same with the horses. I matched the weight and their ability level because we have some that buck harder than others, and some that are walk trot, lead line. Like we have all different ones, but I don't have too many of them.
Awesome. Well, forgive me if this is an ignorant question, but Are all of these outs sort of in a competitive environment, or
Mhm.
are there days where it's just like, "Hey, come get on, come learn," that sort of thing?
So actually, on top of our rodeos, we do practice pins. We have the college, Colorado Northwestern Community College, 15 miles away, and actually, their head coach is one of my lifelong best friends, and he comes and coaches. So we also do clinics, little practice pins. The college kids will step in and help the kids. And like I said, we do a big school every spring that Keenan comes and coaches, and then last year we had Casey Coletti. A couple years ago we had Jacob Lees. But yeah, we kind of do everything just to help grow it because a lot of them kids during the off season they want something to do. So
Yeah, that makes sense. So obviously, Rocky Mountain Mini Broncs and Bulls is its own entity, but tell me more about KH Bucking Horses and what you do there.
I originally started out with big horses. I wanted nothing to do with the ponies for I had a little growth spurt there when I was like, ponies aren't cool. So I got into the futurity business. I raised a couple futurity colts, and then I think I got more big horses now than I do ponies actually. But we're really good with Rocky Mountain Rodeo, so we kind of trade horses out. If you can't get a colt after they come out of the futurity stage to kind of fire and find their place, we come and put outs on them until they can mature enough to go on a pro truck.
Awesome. I think that's something, even for a casual viewer of the NFR, they're watching these horses obviously compete at a high level, but just like the athletes prepare to enter a rodeo or to be at the NFR for sure, they're preparing, but so are the horses. So talk
Mhm.
about how you develop a bucking horse, and what goes into that process. Because I know it's not an easy job.
No. So with us, I kind of take my 2 year olds to futurities if there's one closer, if I can get away, because mainly they're all in Texas. Um, I haven't taken one to any in the last year, actually. But we've taken a few charities, buck them once or twice as 2 year olds, buck them a couple times as 3 year olds, and then turn them out. And then I try not to I put one rider trip on them as a 4 year old and then turn them out and then let them kind of mature, grow up, and then bring them back as 5 year olds and we'll put a couple more trips on them. But we don't want to, we don't overbuck them. Like I said, we and I have a lot of big kids that ride for us too, and even like pros come and practice and stuff. So we'll buck them, but just our main deal is good feed, turning them out, have enough space for them to go run and be horses and
Yeah, for sure. Well, I like what you said about, not overbucking and making sure that they're
mhm.
properly developed, but talk about why there's value in waiting a few years and letting their bodies really develop and get stronger before send them on the road.
Right. So, it's really easy with the colts where they're not developed. If you overbuck them, they can get hurt real easy. Just and a lot of it's mental. A lot of them don't develop until they're older. They hit that 5, 6. I've had a couple that you can't touch their colts until they're 5 and 6 year old. And there's a lot of horses like that. It's same with like the barrel racing and stuff. If you overbuck one, you only get so many trips out of them before they spit the bit. So like with barrel racing, your horses get hot. They don't want to do it anymore. You overbuck or you overrun them. They're not going to want to do it anymore. So we try to give them the best care they can. They love their job. Um, and if we can see that they're getting bucked too much in the summer, I try to turn them out. Or if we have a hang up or something, I'll turn them out and I won't touch them for 6 months.
Yeah, very cool. I think that's an underrated thing that we don't talk about enough is just how much care specific I mean all animals. Obviously, rodeo people really care about their animals, but especially on the rough stock side,
Mhm.
I saw a statistic. I wish I could remember exactly what it said, but something about, the average pro rodeo rough stock animal is in the arena for less than 5 minutes a year,
Yeah.
which is just insane. I wish I had a job where I only had to work for 5 minutes and then I could just go eat and be merry, but,
Mhm.
that's not the case. So,
right?
Yeah, super spoiled, and it's just fun to watch, especially
Mhm.
now, all the bloodlines that are going, and you can kind of you have a favorite bucking horse, and then you can follow their progeny too. So it's a cool
Yeah,
spot that
exactly.
we're at in rodeo.
Mhm.
Are there any like specific events or like stories that you would want to tell about, mini broncs and bulls, or just any of your big bucking horses that you found a lot of success with?
Well, we have a lot of great rodeos. I can't pick just one. We've been blessed enough to be able to go to a lot of pro rodeos throughout Colorado and surrounding states. And then stories, gosh. I don't
Is
know.
there
Probably the biggest one is for me is just seeing the kids their smiles and stuff when after they get off or the excitement of after they realize that they can do it and then being able to watch them grow. Like we had an event in Torrington, Wyoming this weekend, and I think probably at least over half of them had never been, and every single one of them kids, like the horses bucked, they felt good after 6 months off after their little vacation, but every single kid was ready to come get back on. They're already planning when they're gonna get on next, so
Yeah,
just stuff like that.
that's cool. Well, I'm curious, of the kids that get on or get their first taste of, riding rough stock or whatever. Are they coming from a rodeo background, or is this their first taste of any of that sort of thing?
It's a mix of both. I got some bull rider brothers that no rodeo background at all. Parents were new to it. They wanted to do it, so parents said, "Why not?" Um, it's probably a good 50-50, and then, like, cause we supply the bareback riggings and stuff too for the kids that don't have any or, like, kinda like the mutton busting. If your kid wants to try it, they can try it without mom and dad having to go pay a lot of money to buy your rigging for you to realize you don't like it. But we have a bunch of rodeos where there's kids that they just wanna try it, so we put riggings on for them. We give them the safety gear, and they get on, and it goes from there. Either they do it again or they don't. So
Yeah. What would you say is the most rewarding part of the whole thing? Of course, the schools have probably a special element to that because you're actually teaching and stuff, but what is the most rewarding part for you when it comes to the mini bulls and broncs and helping the younger kids?
just a success and watching the kids be confident. Starting out knowing nothing, and by the end of the season, they're riding. They know what they're doing. They don't need mom and dad to help them anymore. And they think they're Superman.
Yeah. Well, you really have a front row view to young athletes developing themselves in the future of the sport. What do you think other, people in the rodeo industry can do to help develop young athletes, even if that's not necessarily raising mini bulls and frogs?
Biggest thing is just be supportive. A lot of people want nothing to do with youth, and then they don't realize that if you don't bring the youth up, then there's no future. Um, so we just gotta support it the best we can and be respectful of them kids, be encouraging. If even if you don't want to deal with it, tell them maybe there's someone else you could refer them to help them. Just be respectful. That's probably the main thing because if you go up, a little kid goes up to one of the pro guys and is like, "Hey, can you help me?" And they say no, they're not going to want to do it. So just be encouraging, help the best you can, even if you don't want to. And then another thing that we have learned is this is probably gonna get me in trouble. Parents are the biggest detriment to their child. So parents, don't try to force your kid too much. Your 10-year-old does not need to have a wedge on their rigging so they're hanging up. If they can't learn the basics of a soft handled rigging or holding on with just a hard handled rigging and learning their center of balance, then they don't need to be getting on because, first of all, if they hang up, that's a detriment to their health, and the horses could get hurt, and they're probably not going to want to do it again. So
Yeah.
just a big safety concern. But yeah, no, parents just need to take a step back and be supportive. Don't push your kid if they don't want to do it, but kind of just let them go on their own.
Yeah.
And then, like I said before, just be encouraging.
I feel like we should clip that audio and just play it before every junior rodeo across the United States.
Exactly.
Be like, this
Stress
is
it
not the
enough.
NFR. Let's let little Jimmy be. Like, go get him a hot dog. It's gonna be
I know, and
okay.
that's what Keenan teaches at the schools and stuff, and all of our ring-ins that we provide are soft-handled ring-ins. And that's where we've seen the most success from. And that's how Keenan started riding. He was with the soft-handled rigging. He learned
Yeah.
his center of balance. You can't rely on your arm. You got to learn the basics before you go above and beyond. The last thing we want to see is a kid get hung up and drug around the arena, because then there's a good chance that the horse isn't going to be the same after that. And then on top of it, you're putting the pickup men in a situation that, yes, accidents happen, but if you're be preventative, don't try to force it.
Yeah. Uh, as a family, what has been, obviously you've taken the lead on a lot of this stuff here
Mhm.
recently. When exactly did you take over again? I think I missed that.
2020, I believe.
Okay, very cool. What has been the most rewarding part for your family in getting to do this together and getting to give back in this way?
I think mainly just watching it grow and how the numbers have grown. Even though I've taken it over, my dad is still super involved. My mom's still super involved. My dad's my truck driver for big rodeos,
Shout
and
out.
yeah, um, and I think he feels a little left out sometimes that I've taken it over, and so I still try to involve him a lot and have him drive, because there's a lot of weekends that we have double back rodeos, so
Mhm.
or we got to take a pot somewhere, so he'll take it, and then I've been fortunate enough to be able to have a pretty cool brother that steps in and helps when I need him to. If he needs to go drive the semi somewhere, if dad can't, or he needs to go run a rodeo for me. If we're double booked, he'll do that if he's home. So,
Yeah. Well, what's really cool about this to me is, of course, you can see the benefits and the advantages to learning at a young age, but the proof is really in the pudding because you can point to your world champion brother and say, hey, this really does work, and we kind of know what we're talking about.
mhm.
What was it like to watch him achieve that goal after watching him get bucked off a mini pony at a young age?
It's probably the coolest thing ever. I cried, I'll be honest. I knew he could do it just with his drive, and that was his goal since the first time he ever got on was to be a world champion. And he did it and broke every record along the way too. So, um just being able to see him do what he loves and then still be like true to himself and humble, and that's probably the coolest part.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited to see what all you do in the new year. Of course, we're talking, just after New Year's Day. So, what are some of your goals for 2025 and how do you hope to see your business expand this year?
Um, Normally we have the winters off. If I could expand it down to Texas, Oklahoma, and stuff like that, that is one of my main goals is to try to get down south or Arizona, warmer country other than little Antarctica up here. Um, we're looking at doing some schools in Nebraska and just expanding all over and not just Colorado, Wyoming, and Utah. Because there was a lot of pony programs in Texas, and they kind of all just disappeared, and now there's only one guy that I know of. So if we can just get down and kind of help plant seeds all over instead of just one place and kind of travel to the kids, that's my main goal.
Yeah. That's one thing I didn't consider or ask, I guess. How many other operations like this exist or what's the state of mini Bronx and bulls across the country?
So there's a lot of contractors. I do know that. I try to stay out of it. Contract a guy to come in for the mini bulls. I will do that. Just because of the level of my mini bulls, and then I would much rather just deal with the horse side of it. Um, but as for the pony programs, there's not a ton. There's some bigger ones that we're tied in with. Obviously the junior finals. There's a handful that take horses to the junior finals. Uh, but there's not an abundance of them.
Well, this has been so fun. I feel like I've learned about a world that I knew relatively little about prior to this morning. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Breaking the Barrier. We had the opportunity to visit with Kaitlynn Hayes of Rocky Mountain Mini Broncs and Mini Bulls and KH Bucking Horses. As a reminder, all previous episodes of Breaking the Barrier are available to watch on YouTube, and we'll see you next time.